It moved. A lump, the size of a pea, just under the skin on the inside of her wrist. Elena noticed it on a Tuesday morning and thought nothing of it. A bug bite, maybe. A cyst. By the evening, it had slid 2 inches up her forearm. By the next morning, it had crossed to the back of her hand. It was traveling under her skin, and it was not alone. Within weeks, that same crawling lump would appear on her ankle, her ribs, the soft skin below her eye. Each one a living thing, burrowing through her, leaving a raised track wherever it went. And by the time anyone worked out what it was, one of them had turned, in the dark, toward her brain. What was living inside Elena had come from a plate of food she had been told was perfectly safe. A food millions of people eat. The kind of meal you remember for the wrong reasons. Here is how an ordinary meal put a worm inside a woman that wouldn't die. How it learned to crawl through her, and the one thing people get badly wrong about the food that carried it. 3 weeks before the lump, Elena had been on the coast, celebrating. Her sister had come to visit, and they'd gone out for the thing the town was known for, ceviche. Fresh fish, caught that morning, cleaned and cut, then drowned in lime juice until the flesh turned opaque and white. 2 plates of it, with toasted corn and cold beer, on a balcony over the water. This matters, so hold on to it. The fish in ceviche is raw. Everyone knows that. But there is a belief repeated in kitchens and on menus all over the world that the lime juice does the same thing cooking does. That the acid cooks the fish. The flesh firms up, it turns white, it looks exactly like cooked fish looks. So it must be safe. It is not. Acid does not cook a parasite to death. It barely touches it. The only things that reliably kill the worms in raw fish are heat, real cooking, and freezing, deep freezing, for days. The lime is a lie, the eye tells you, and whatever was in Elena's fish had survived it the way you'd survive a cool bath. Her sister had the cooked dish, the grilled catch of the day, and was fine. Same table, same kitchen, same catch. The only difference was heat. Elena didn't know any of that yet. She just remembered it as a perfect afternoon. The first sign came about 3 weeks later, and it didn't look like anything at all. A low fever, a sick, dragged-out feeling. Ache in her joints, a tenderness across her stomach that she put down to a bug she'd picked up on the trip. She rested, drank water, waited for it to pass the way you wait out a stomach flu. And after a few days, most of it did pass. Then the lump appeared on her wrist. It didn't hurt the way a bite hurts. It ached, vaguely, and the skin over it was a little swollen, a little warm, a little pink. She pressed on it, and it felt firm, like a knot under the surface. She made a doctor's appointment, and the doctor looked at it and made the call almost anyone would make. An allergic reaction, probably. Maybe an insect bite that had gotten inflamed. Here's an antihistamine, a mild steroid cream, come back if it spreads. It spread, but not the way an allergy spreads. Over the following days, the swelling didn't multiply so much as relocate. The lump on her wrist faded, and a new one rose on her forearm, an inch or 2 further up. Then that one faded, and another appeared, higher again, as if something were drawing a slow line up her arm. When one surfaced on her ribs, the doctor's call changed. Cellulitis this time. A skin infection. A different cream. A course of antibiotics. Take them all. Keep it clean. It'll settle. It didn't settle. The swellings kept migrating, an inch a day, leaving faint pink trails in their wake. And each time Elena pressed her fingers to one, she could feel, faintly, something in there. Something firm and thin and longer than a lump had any right to be. The thing that breaks a case open is rarely a test. It's usually a question, asked by the right person, at the right time, Elena ended up in the emergency room the night a swelling surfaced just below her left eye, puffing the lid half shut and blurring her vision. That scared her in a way the arm had not. A face is different. An eye is different. She went straight in. The doctor who saw her that night did two things her previous doctors hadn't. The first was small, but it was everything. She asked about the trip. What had Elena eaten? Where? How was it prepared? And when Elena said the word ceviche, something shifted behind the doctor's eyes. The second thing was a blood test, but a specific one. Not the usual panel. She ordered a white blood cell count with a differential, the breakdown, and she was looking for one number in particular. Eosinophils. Eosinophils are the immune system's parasite hunters, the cells your body throws at things that don't belong, worms and flukes and the like. In a healthy person, they sit at 1 to 3% of the white cell count. Elena's was through the roof. Her body had been screaming in the only language blood cells have, that there was a worm inside her, and nobody had been listening. The doctor didn't guess. She sent the blood for something more specific, an antibody test for a family of parasites that do exactly this, that migrate through tissue, that don't stay put. And she ordered a scan to see what was moving where, especially near that eye, because the eye sits right next to the brain, and something traveling under the skin can travel further than the skin. So what is actually in there crawling through a person? To understand the horror of this, you have to meet the thing itself. It's a larva, a baby worm, no thicker than a hair, and anywhere from a sliver to a couple of centimeters long, depending on its stage. It belongs to a parasite called gnathostoma, and it was never supposed to be inside a human at all. Here's the strange, central fact of this disease. We are a mistake to it. In its proper life, the adult worm lives in the stomach wall of a dog or a cat or a pig. Its eggs pass out into water, hatch into tiny larvae, get eaten by little freshwater crustaceans, and then those get eaten by fish or frogs or snakes, where the larva curls up and waits. The journey is supposed to end when that fish gets eaten by the right animal, the one where it can finally grow up. A human eats the fish instead, and the larva finds itself in the wrong body, with no way to finish growing and no way to die. So it does the only thing it knows how to do. It moves. And the way it moves is what makes doctors go quiet. On its head, this larva carries a bulb covered in rows of tiny hooks, and it uses them to ratchet itself forward, tearing through tissue, one grip at a time. Imagine a tiny grappling hook dragged slowly through the meat of a person, through the wall of the stomach, through the liver, through the fat and muscle under the skin. Wherever it goes, it leaves inflammation in its wake, and that inflammation is the swelling Elena felt. The lump was never a lump. It was the worm. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. If nobody finds it, this larva does not go away. It can keep migrating on and off for more than 10 years. The same worm, in the same person, surfacing as a swelling here, vanishing, surfacing there. A decade of a living thing touring someone's body because it cannot find the home it was meant for. This is not a common disease. Since the first case was described in Thailand in 1889, fewer than about 5,000 human cases have ever been recorded, almost all of them in a belt of the world where raw, freshwater fish is a way of life. Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Mexico. The parasite's most common name is Gnathostoma spinigerum. But rare is not the same as gone, and as raw fish travels to new tables, so does the worm that rides inside it. For most people who get this, the worm stays in the skin. It is miserable. It is disgusting. It goes on for years, but it is survivable. Elena was not most people. The scan near her eye found it had gone deeper than the surface, and somewhere in the days after, The migratory pattern changed. The skin swellings stopped. Instead came a headache unlike any she'd had, a stiffness in her neck she couldn't bend away, a sharp, blinding pain behind her eyes when the light hit them. Then, one morning, a numbness crawling up her arm and a weakness in her leg that hadn't been there the night before. The worm had found a corridor, the tissue around the nerves, the fluid highways that run up toward the spine and the brain. And it was climbing. This is the version of the disease that kills. When nathostoma reaches the central nervous system, it causes a thing called eosinophilic meningitis, an inflammation of the brain's lining and sometimes the brain itself. It can trigger bleeding. It can paralyze. It is one of the few parasites that can genuinely march into a person's brain and keep going. And once it does, the odds turn badly against the person carrying it. The doctors moved. They moved the way you move when the brain is on the clock. They brought the full weight of the treatment down at once, and they did it knowing the cruelest catch in this disease. The drug that works is a wormer called albendazole. But killing a parasite that has been quietly migrating is not a clean job. As the worm dies, the inflammation around it can flare, and in some cases, a dying larva is driven to move one last time. When that happens anywhere near the brain, the very treatment meant to save you can make things worse before they get better. So they had to treat her carefully, weighing each step in a body where the worm was already climbing. They did something else too, the thing that for this disease is the cleanest answer of all. Where the larva had surfaced close enough to reach, a surgeon went in after it and took it out, whole, the head bulb and its rows of hooks still gripping the air. There is no drug on Earth as effective against this parasite as simply removing it when you can get to it. Elena survived. The worm that had turned toward her brain was stopped, and after a long course of treatment and more than one scare, the migrating swellings ended. I won't pretend it was clean or quick, because with this parasite it rarely is. It relapses. The drugs often have to be given again and again, until the last larva is truly gone. But she kept her sight, and she kept her mind, and that is not the ending everyone gets. So here's the part that's actually useful, because unlike most of what we cover, the danger here is sitting in a kitchen right now, and the fix is something you can choose. The first thing is to kill the lie. Lime juice does not make raw fish safe. Neither does lemon, vinegar, salt, smoke, or pickle. None of them. The acid in a ceviche firms the flesh and turns it white, and it leaves the worm inside it perfectly alive. The only things that kill these larvae are heat and time in a freezer. The fish has to be cooked through, or frozen at -20 degrees for several days before it's ever served raw. That's it. Those are the only two doors out. If you eat raw or undercooked freshwater fish, eels, loaches, frogs, or snakes, and it hasn't been frozen that way, you are rolling the same dice Elena rolled in the regions where this parasite lives, and increasingly beyond them. The second thing is to know the sign. If you've eaten raw fish, and weeks later you develop a swelling that moves, a lump that won't stay in one place, that is not an allergy. That is a worm under your skin. Go in and tell the doctor where you've been and what you ate, and say the word out loud, nathostomiasis, and ask for an eosinophil count and a parasite antibody test. Because the difference between a worm in the skin and a worm in the brain is not luck. It's how fast someone asks the right question. Elena's sister ate the grilled fish that afternoon. Same catch, same kitchen, same balcony over the water. She went home with nothing but a nice memory. The difference between her week and Elena's year was nothing more than heat. The fire that cooks a thing, and the lie that a little green fruit does the same job. It doesn't. It never did.